The day began like any other in the sprawling mansion, where marble floors reflected the morning sun streaming through ornate windows. The millionaire, John Thompson, was in his usual routine, sipping a freshly brewed cup of coffee while reviewing a stack of documents at the grand kitchen island. He was a man who had built his fortune through sheer determination and an eye for lucrative investments, creating a lifestyle that was both luxurious and isolating. Despite the wealth he had accumulated, he often felt an emptiness that success couldn't fill. In contrast, Maria, his housekeeper, was the embodiment of hard work and loyalty. For over 5 years, she had managed the household with grace, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She took pride in her work, treating the mansion like her own home. Maria had a natural warmth that resonated with everyone who entered the house, and John often admired her resilience and dedication. She had weathered personal struggles, including the recent loss of her mother, yet her spirit remained unbroken. As John settled into his morning, he noticed that a few expensive items had gone missing in recent weeks. A valuable watch from his office, a set of crystal wine glasses, and some cash from his study. Initially, he brushed it off, attributing it to misplaced belongings. But as the items continued to disappear, suspicion crept into his mind. Without thinking twice, he decided to confront Maria, believing her to be the only person who could have access to his private spaces. In the midst of her duties, Maria was called into John's office. She entered with her usual cheery demeanor, but a shift in the atmosphere made her pulse quicken. John's piercing gaze bore into her, and his voice was cold. He accused her outright, stating that he believed she had stolen his possessions. Maria was taken aback, her heart racing as she struggled to comprehend the accusation. She had always been honest, a point she attempted to make clear to John, but he was unwavering. In his mind, the evidence was there. How else could he explain the missing items? Despite her protests, John dismissed her words as attempts to deflect blame. In a moment that felt like a betrayal of everything they had built together, he fired her on the spot, not allowing her to gather her belongings. Maria stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes as she felt the walls of the mansion close in around her. This was not just a job to her, it was a sanctuary, and now it felt like a prison. She left the office in silence, the weight of his words echoing in her mind. The fallout from the firing was swift and brutal. Word spread quickly among the household staff, and murmurs of disbelief and shock filled the air. Maria's colleagues, who knew her character and integrity, felt a mix of anger and sadness. They couldn't comprehend how John could accuse someone so dedicated and trustworthy. The kitchen, usually a hub of laughter and activity, fell into a somber mood, with many staff members exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Meanwhile, John was left in a state of turmoil. After sending Maria away, he attempted to continue his day, but the unease settled heavily in his chest. He had acted rashly, but pride kept him from second-guessing his decision. Alone in his vast mansion, he felt an emptiness deeper than before. The glimmering possessions that surrounded him felt hollow. He had lost something far more valuable than material wealth. The silence of the house weighed heavily on him, and he found himself staring at the photographs on the wall, images of him smiling, surrounded by friends and family. Yet in this moment, he felt utterly alone. As the day dragged on, John couldn't shake the nagging thought that perhaps he had been too hasty. He recalled the countless moments Maria had been there for him, her laughter, her understanding, and the way she could light up the dullest of days. The memories tugged at his heart, and guilt began to seep in. But pride was a potent force, and he pushed the feelings aside, convincing himself that he had done the right thing. The next morning, Maria sat in her small apartment, the familiar warmth of her home replaced by an oppressive chill. As she looked around, she saw the remnants of her life, family photographs, mementos from happier times, and the fading light of hope that had sustained her through challenging moments. She had poured her heart and soul into that job, and the sudden betrayal felt like a knife to her spirit. The shock of losing her job was compounded by the humiliation of being accused of theft. She felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sorrow, and disbelief. In the days that followed, Maria grappled with her feelings of injustice. She had always prided herself on her honesty and work ethic, and to be treated this way was an affront to her character. Friends reached out, offering comfort and support, but the damage was done. She felt an overwhelming need to clear her name and regain the dignity that had been stripped from her. Slowly, a plan began to form in her mind. She would not let this end her story. She would stand up for herself and seek the truth. As she contemplated her next steps, John was spiraling deeper into regret. He began to question the validity of his actions, wondering if he had been influenced by his own insecurities and past experiences. Memories of his parents' harsh lessons about trust began to resurface. He remembered their warnings about betrayal and deceit, and how those lessons had shaped his worldview. Yet those lessons hadn't prepared him for the reality of his actions against someone who had always stood by him. John's friends began to notice the change in him. They could see the shadows under his eyes and the distraction in his conversations. His mind was elsewhere, lost in the thoughts of Maria's loyalty and how he had thrown it all away in a moment of anger. Each time he entered the kitchen, he half expected to hear her voice or see her bustling about, bringing life to the space. The emptiness was palpable, a constant reminder of his mistake. This emotional tug-of-war marked the beginning of a tumultuous journey for both John and Maria. Unbeknownst to them, their lives were intertwined in a way that neither could foresee. Each was preparing for a confrontation that would test their values, resilience, and the very essence of forgiveness. As the days turned into weeks, John found himself trapped in a cycle of regret and self-recrimination. The luxurious mansion that once felt like a haven now loomed over him like a gilded cage. Each corner of the expansive space echoed with memories of Maria's laughter, her warmth, and her unwavering dedication. The meticulous order of his home felt jarring without her presence, and the absence of her touch only deepened his sense of isolation. He tried to fill the void with work, burying himself in meetings and endless phone calls, but the distractions only provided temporary relief. Late at night, when the world outside was quiet, he often sat alone in the grand living room, staring at the walls adorned with expensive art that now seemed lifeless. The plush furnishings that once brought him comfort felt suffocating, as if they were mocking his choices. He picked up the phone several times to call Maria, but each time he hesitated, fear of her rejection holding him back. He grappled with the fear of hearing her voice filled with bitterness, questioning whether she could ever forgive him. Amidst his turmoil, John began to reflect on the motivations behind his actions. He remembered how, growing up, his parents had instilled in him a deep mistrust of others. They had come from humble beginnings, and their rise to wealth had been fraught with struggles. Their harsh lessons about betrayal had been imprinted in his mind. Never let anyone get too close, for fear they might take advantage of you. Yet as he replayed those lessons in his mind, he began to see them for what they truly were, a protective shield that had ultimately isolated him from meaningful connections. In his quest for success, he had sacrificed the very relationships that could have enriched his life. It was during one of these long nights of contemplation that a memory emerged, vivid and unbidden. John recalled a particular moment when Maria had gone above and beyond her duties. It was during a holiday party he had hosted, a grand affair filled with laughter, music, and a sense of camaraderie. Maria had worked tirelessly to prepare for the event, her enthusiasm infectious as she arranged beautiful floral centerpieces and laid out exquisite platters of food. That night, as guests mingled, John had noticed how she effortlessly charmed everyone, her laughter ringing like music amid the clinking of glasses. In that moment, he had felt a surge of gratitude, realizing how much Maria contributed to the warmth of his home. She had transformed the mansion from a mere residence into a place where memories were forged. He had praised her that night, and her eyes had lit up with pride. Now, looking back, he could see that he had taken her loyalty for granted, failing to acknowledge the depth of her commitment to both the job and to him. The realization stung, and he felt a wave of shame wash over him. Meanwhile, Maria was embarking on her own journey of healing. After the shock of her dismissal, she had spent a few days in a haze of disbelief, overwhelmed by feelings of anger and betrayal. But as the days passed, the initial shock began to give way to clarity. She found solace in her friends and family, who rallied around her, offering encouragement and support. Their love reminded her that her worth was not defined by her job or the opinions of one man. Maria took solace in the fact that she had always been true to herself and that authenticity could never be taken away. One afternoon, as she sat in her small living room, she felt a flicker of determination ignite within her. She knew she had to confront the situation head-on. It was not just about clearing her name, it was about reclaiming her dignity and standing up for herself. She spent hours drafting a letter to John, pouring her heart into the words. The letter was not just a defense against the accusations, it was a reflection of her journey, her struggles, and her unwavering commitment to honesty. In the letter, Maria began by recounting her time in the mansion, highlighting the moments of joy, laughter, and shared experiences. She wrote about her dedication to her work and the care she took in managing the household. As she wrote, memories flooded her mind, the countless times she had gone above and beyond, staying late to prepare for events or lending a listening ear when John needed someone to talk to. She also expressed her hurt at being accused of theft, a label that felt like a dagger to her heart. But Maria didn't stop there. She recognized the importance of forgiveness, both for herself and for John. While she felt wronged, she also understood that people could act out of fear and insecurity. She chose to view John's actions through a lens of compassion, acknowledging the pressure he faced as a successful businessman. In her letter, she extended an olive branch, expressing her willingness to talk and resolve the situation, but only if he was open to it. When she finished the letter, she read it over and over, ensuring that every word captured her thoughts and feelings. The act of writing felt cathartic, allowing her to channel her pain into something productive. With a deep breath, she sealed the envelope and decided to send it. She knew it was a risk, but it was a risk she was willing to take. Maria felt empowered by her decision to confront the situation rather than shy away from it. Meanwhile, John received the letter a few days later, a crisp white envelope sitting conspicuously on his mahogany desk. For a moment, he hesitated, a knot tightening in his stomach. He felt a mix of dread and hope, dread over what he might read, and hope that perhaps this would be an opportunity to make amends. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope and began to read. As he delved into Maria's heartfelt words, emotions surged through him. He felt shame wash over him as he recognized the pain he had caused. Each sentence felt like a direct reflection of his own shortcomings, and he could hear her voice in his mind, filled with sincerity and strength. She recounted the moments they had shared, moments that he had cherished but had taken for granted. Her honesty and vulnerability cut through the layers of his pride, and he began to realize the weight of his mistake. By the time he reached the end of the letter, tears blurred his vision. Maria's compassion shone through, her willingness to forgive igniting a spark of hope within him. He felt an overwhelming urge to reach out, to express his regret, to make things right. But as quickly as that hope emerged, self-doubt crept back in. What if she rejected him? What if she couldn't see past the hurt he had caused? In that moment of vulnerability, John made a decision. He would not allow fear to dictate his actions any longer. He took a deep breath, picking up the phone to call Maria. As the dial tone echoed in his ear, he felt the weight of anticipation and dread collide. It was time to confront the consequences of his actions, to seek redemption, and hopefully to rebuild the trust that had been so carelessly shattered. Maria felt a mix of anxiety and determination as she awaited John's response. After sending her heartfelt letter, she had retreated to the comfort of her small apartment, seeking solace in the familiarity of her surroundings. Yet, she couldn't shake the apprehension that accompanied the prospect of facing him again. The silence in her home was palpable, filled with the echoes of memories from her time working in the mansion. She could almost visualize the grand rooms, the intricate details of the decor, and the countless moments of laughter that now felt like a distant dream. Days passed, and each tick of the clock heightened her anticipation. She found herself checking her phone compulsively, hoping for a response, but the silence felt deafening. Just when she began to think that perhaps he wouldn't reach out, her phone buzzed with a message. Her heart raced as she glanced down, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. It was from John, a simple text that read, "Can we talk? I'd like to meet." With her heart pounding, Maria replied, agreeing to meet at a nearby cafe. The choice of location felt fitting. It was neutral ground, a place filled with the aroma of coffee and the gentle murmur of conversations. She arrived early, her nerves in knots as she sipped on a warm cup of tea, trying to calm the storm brewing inside her. She replayed the conversation in her mind, rehearsing her words, wanting to ensure she expressed herself clearly without letting the flood of emotions overwhelm her. As the clock ticked closer to their meeting time, she spotted John approaching. He looked different. His usual confident demeanor replaced by a look of uncertainty. The sharp suit that once exuded authority now felt out of place, and for the first time she noticed the vulnerability etched on his face. He walked in slowly, scanning the room until his eyes locked onto hers. There was a brief moment where their gazes met, and Maria felt a surge of emotions rush through her, a mix of resentment, sadness, and the flicker of hope. When John reached the table, he hesitated for a moment, as if he was searching for the right words. "Hi, Maria," he said softly, taking a seat across from her. The atmosphere was thick with tension, the air heavy with unspoken words. "Hi, John," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. It felt surreal to be sitting across from him again, especially after everything that had transpired. After a few awkward seconds of silence, John took a deep breath, his hands fidgeting nervously with a napkin. "I want to start by apologizing," he began, his voice earnest yet shaky. "I was wrong to accuse you of theft, and I should have never dismissed you the way I did." His eyes searched hers, as if pleading for understanding. Maria felt a wave of emotions crash over her. It was what she had hoped to hear, yet part of her still grappled with the hurt of the past weeks. "Thank you for saying that," she replied cautiously. "It hurt, John. It hurt a lot." Her voice trembled slightly as she continued. "I dedicated so much of myself to that job, and to be treated like a criminal was devastating." John nodded, his expression solemn as he absorbed her words. "I can't imagine what you must have felt," he said, his voice thick with regret. "I was scared. I've had things go missing before, and my instinct was to protect what I had. I let my fears cloud my judgment and lost sight of who you are." Maria listened, her heart torn between the desire to forgive and the lingering pain of betrayal. "I understand that you were scared, but it doesn't excuse how you handled it," she said, her tone firm yet compassionate. "You could have talked to me instead of jumping to conclusions. I would have never stolen from you, John. I've always been honest, and to have that questioned was painful." John's gaze dropped to the table, and for a moment, silence enveloped them. He seemed to be grappling with his emotions, his mind racing through memories of their time together. "I was wrong, and I know I can't take back what I did," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I regret it every single day since." As he spoke, Maria saw the sincerity in his eyes, a glimmer of the man she had admired. She realized that he too had been on a journey of reflection, facing the consequences of his actions. "I appreciate your honesty, John," she replied, her voice softening. "I think we both have lessons to learn from this experience." Their conversation began to flow more freely, the initial tension gradually dissipating as they opened up about their perspectives. John shared his upbringing, how his parents' harsh lessons on trust had shaped his worldview, leading him to build walls around himself. Maria listened intently, realizing that he was not just a millionaire, but a man burdened by his past, struggling with insecurities that had manifested in his treatment of her. "I never wanted to be this way," John admitted, his voice laced with vulnerability. "I've worked so hard to achieve success, but in the process, I've pushed away people who genuinely care about me. I took you for granted, Maria, and that's something I'm ashamed of." Maria felt a flicker of empathy ignite within her. She had spent so long feeling wronged that it was refreshing to hear John acknowledge his mistakes and the consequences they had wrought. "We all make mistakes," she replied gently. "What matters is how we choose to move forward from them. I think we both need to be better at trusting ourselves and each other." With the weight of their shared understanding, they began to discuss their hopes for the future. John expressed his desire to rebuild not just his relationship with Maria, but also to foster a more genuine connection with the people around him. "I want to create an environment where trust and respect flourish," he said earnestly. "I want to be a better person, not just for myself, but for those I care about." Maria felt a sense of empowerment in their conversation. The walls she had built around her heart began to crack as she allowed herself to see John's potential for growth. "I believe you can be better, John, but it takes effort, and it requires vulnerability," she said, her voice steady. "I want to be part of that process, but we need to start from a place of mutual respect." As their conversation deepened, they shared stories, laughter, and even tears. They reminisced about the good times in the mansion, the moments that had once brought them joy. For the first time in weeks, Maria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The tension that had lingered between them began to dissolve as they forged a new understanding, one built on honesty, respect, and the potential for forgiveness. After what felt like hours, the cafe was beginning to empty, and the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm glow through the windows. John looked across the table at Maria, and for the first time since their fallout, he saw her not just as a housekeeper, but as a person worthy of respect and admiration. "I would like to offer you your job back," he said, his voice filled with hope. "I understand if you need time to think about it, but I'd be honored to have you back in my home." Maria felt a rush of emotions. The offer was both unexpected and comforting, a chance to reclaim her place in a world that had momentarily felt so cold. "I appreciate that, John," she replied thoughtfully. "I need some time to process everything, but I am open to the idea. I believe in second chances for both of us." With a sense of renewed purpose, they finished their drinks and exchanged phone numbers, promising to stay in touch. As Maria left the cafe, the weight on her heart felt lighter, and she knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. The path ahead would not be easy, but with the foundation of honesty and understanding they had built, she felt a flicker of hope that perhaps they could both find redemption in their shared journey. As the days turned into weeks following their heartfelt conversation at the cafe, both Maria and John found themselves navigating a delicate path of rebuilding trust and re-establishing their relationship. For Maria, the journey was about more than just her job. It was about reclaiming her sense of self and rediscovering her worth after the painful experience of being accused of theft. For John, it was a chance at redemption, an opportunity to confront the shadows of his past and reshape his understanding of relationships and trust. Maria took her time in deciding whether to return to the mansion. She found solace in her small apartment, using the space to reflect and regain her strength. With the help of friends and family, she surrounded herself with positivity and support, allowing herself the freedom to feel her emotions without judgment. Each day brought its own challenges, but she was determined to move forward with purpose. She focused on small tasks that brought her joy, like painting, cooking, and volunteering at a local shelter. These activities helped her reconnect with her passions and reminded her of the resilience she had always possessed. Meanwhile, John was busy redefining his life and business philosophy. He spent hours reflecting on the lessons he had learned from Maria, particularly the importance of vulnerability and connection. After years of prioritizing profit over people, he realized that the success he had built felt hollow without genuine relationships. He enrolled in a personal development course, eager to learn more about emotional intelligence and how to cultivate an environment where trust could thrive. One evening, John found himself alone in his home office, staring at the family photos that adorned his walls. Each picture told a story, happy moments with friends, family gatherings, and celebrations of milestones. Yet, as he looked at those images, he felt a profound sense of loss. The emptiness of his mansion felt magnified in the absence of the warmth that Maria had brought into his life. He pulled out Maria's letter and reread it, each word resonating with a depth he hadn't fully appreciated before. He began to draft a plan, not just for his professional life, but for his personal relationships. He wanted to be someone who listened, who valued the people around him, and who learned from his mistakes. After days of careful consideration, Maria finally decided to return to the mansion, but under her own terms. She drafted a list of boundaries and expectations, wanting to ensure that her voice would be heard this time. She felt empowered as she penned her thoughts, detailing what she needed to feel respected and valued in her role. The list included open communication, regular check-ins, and a commitment from John to foster a positive work environment. Maria knew that these changes were essential for her own peace of mind and for the success of their working relationship. When the day arrived for Maria to step back into the mansion, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The grandeur of the home, with its high ceilings and elegant decor, once filled her with pride, but now it stirred up a torrent of memories, both joyful and painful. As she walked through the front door, a sense of nostalgia washed over her. She was greeted by the familiar scents of polished wood and fresh flowers, but it was the quiet that struck her the most. The mansion felt empty without the lively energy she had once infused into it. John was waiting for her in the kitchen, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Maria," he said, a warm smile breaking through the tension that had lingered since their last encounter. "I'm so glad you're here." "Thank you, John," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm ready to start anew, but I need us to have an open dialogue about expectations." She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words as they hung in the air between them. "I've prepared some thoughts on how we can work together to ensure that we both feel valued in this relationship." John nodded, his expression serious yet understanding. "I'm all ears, Maria. Your voice matters, and I want to ensure we're on the same page moving forward." As they sat together at the kitchen table, Maria laid out her expectations. She spoke about the importance of regular check-ins where they could discuss any concerns openly without fear of judgment. She emphasized the need for mutual respect, particularly in the decision-making process regarding household matters. She wanted to feel included, to know that her opinions were valued as part of the team. Each point she made was met with John's attentive listening, and she could see the sincerity in his eyes. "Your perspective is incredibly important to me," he said after she finished. "I understand now how vital communication is, and I want to make sure that you feel heard and respected. I'll do everything I can to foster that environment." They spent the rest of the day discussing their visions for the future. John shared his own reflections and how he wanted to implement changes within the household and his business practices. He talked about his journey towards becoming more emotionally aware and how he hoped to create a space where everyone felt valued, not just as employees, but as individuals. Over the next few weeks, Maria and John worked diligently to put their plans into action. John encouraged open communication and made a conscious effort to engage with the staff on a more personal level. He began hosting weekly meetings with the household staff where everyone could voice their concerns, share ideas, and feel appreciated for their hard work. Maria observed the transformation in John. He was genuinely invested in making the mansion a home for everyone who worked there. With each passing day, Maria found herself reinvigorated by the positive changes. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, taking pride in her work and the atmosphere she was helping to cultivate. Together, they redecorated common areas, adding personal touches that reflected the staff's input. The mansion began to transform into a warm, welcoming space rather than a cold symbol of wealth. Yet, amidst the newfound harmony, Maria still grappled with lingering trust issues. Although John's actions were aligning with his words, she found herself hesitant to fully let go of the past. Every time John made a mistake, no matter how small, a shadow of doubt would creep in. Was this the same man who had betrayed her trust? Would he revert to his old ways? She worked hard to remind herself that healing takes time, and she was learning to embrace the process. John was aware of Maria's struggles. He made a concerted effort to reassure her, reminding her that he was committed to building a foundation of trust. He often reached out for her opinions, encouraging her to share her thoughts without reservation. The more he opened up, the more Maria began to let her guard down. She learned to appreciate the moments of vulnerability he shared, understanding that he was also navigating the complexities of their relationship. One afternoon, while preparing dinner together in the kitchen, a light-hearted atmosphere enveloped them. Maria had taken the lead on a new recipe, and John had eagerly volunteered to assist. As they chopped vegetables and stirred pots, they exchanged playful banter, laughter ringing through the air. In that moment, Maria felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that despite their rocky past, they were building something beautiful together. As they stood side by side, John turned to her, a smile spreading across his face. "I really appreciate you being here, Maria. You've not only transformed the house, but also my perspective on life." His words were heartfelt, and for the first time, Maria felt the weight of her fears begin to lift. "Thank you, John. I appreciate your efforts to change and grow," she replied, her heart swelling with warmth. "I know it hasn't been easy for either of us, but I believe we're making progress." In the weeks that followed, their relationship blossomed. They found comfort in shared routines and collaborated on projects around the house. John invited Maria to participate in decisions regarding the household and even encouraged her to express her thoughts about his business practices. With each small step, the foundations of trust began to solidify, and Maria felt herself beginning to forgive both John and herself. But just as things seemed to be on the right track, an unexpected incident shook the delicate balance they had built. One evening, while tidying up his office, John discovered a valuable piece of art missing, a painting that had been a gift from his late father. Panic surged through him, memories of past accusations flooding his mind. He felt the familiar sense of fear creeping in, threatening to unravel the progress they had made. Instead of confronting Maria immediately, he took a moment to breathe and collect his thoughts. He knew that acting out of fear would only lead to more misunderstandings. He recalled their earlier discussions about trust and communication and resolved to approach the situation differently. That night, over dinner, John felt a knot tightening in his stomach as he prepared to speak with Maria. She noticed his unease and paused, concern etched on her face. "Is everything okay?" she asked, setting down her fork. Taking a deep breath, he replied, "Actually, no. I need to talk to you about something that's bothering me." He explained the situation, his heart racing as he watched her reaction. Maria's eyes widened in surprise. "You think I took it?" she asked, her voice steady but hurt. No, that's not what I meant," he rushed to clarify, feeling guilt wash over him. "I just want to understand what happened. I don't want to jump to conclusions like I did before. It's just, I'm scared of losing what we've built." Her expression softened as she absorbed his words. "I understand why you're worried, John, but you have to trust me. I would never steal from you. I know how hard you've worked to rebuild our relationship." They spent the evening discussing the issue openly, sharing their fears and insecurities, while also reinforcing their commitment to transparency. John realized that this moment could either strengthen their bond or tear them apart, and he chose to lean into vulnerability instead of retreating to old habits. As they navigated this challenge together, Maria felt a newfound strength within herself. She could see the growth in John, how he was trying to handle his fears without letting them dictate his actions. With each passing day, the foundations of their relationship grew stronger, built on open communication, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to trust. Through this challenging experience, Maria learned to trust her instincts again, recognizing that relationships take work and that both partners must be willing to grow. As for John, he learned that vulnerability is not a weakness but a strength, a bridge that connects people in profound ways. Together they continued to rebuild not just their working relationship but also a deep, meaningful friendship, proving that even after the most painful betrayals, love and trust can flourish anew. As summer began to fade into autumn, the air around the mansion transformed, taking on a crispness that signaled change. Leaves turned from green to fiery shades of red and gold, mirroring the new dynamics between Maria and John. Their relationship had shifted from one tainted by distrust to a flourishing partnership rooted in understanding and mutual respect. They both recognized that this journey was about more than just rebuilding their working relationship. It was about personal growth, vulnerability, and learning to trust one another again. Maria felt an undeniable sense of empowerment. With every passing day, she became more confident in her abilities, taking initiative not only in her role, but also in shaping the environment around her. Inspired by her journey of self-discovery, she began to envision ways to enhance the mansion further. One day, she proposed the idea of creating a community garden in the expansive backyard, a space where staff and local volunteers could come together to cultivate plants, share knowledge, and foster connections. John loved the idea and saw it as a perfect opportunity to strengthen relationships among the staff. "What do you think about hosting a garden launch party?" he suggested one evening over dinner. "It could be a great way to involve everyone and celebrate the work we're doing here." Maria's eyes sparkled with excitement at the thought. "That would be amazing. We could invite the staff's families, local community members, and even set up some workshops on sustainable gardening practices. It would bring everyone together in a positive way." As they planned the event together, Maria and John discovered the joy of collaborating as a team. They pored over details, discussing everything from guest lists to activities, decorations, and food. John even suggested hiring a local chef to provide refreshments, emphasizing the importance of supporting local businesses. This was a far cry from the detached, business-only mindset John had once held. The more they worked together, the more they both learned to appreciate each other's strengths and creativity. Weeks passed, and the anticipation for the launch party grew. Maria coordinated with staff members to gather supplies, while John reached out to local community leaders, inviting them to participate in the event. They created a buzz around the mansion, with posters and social media posts showcasing the upcoming garden and the exciting activities planned for the day. As the launch day approached, the excitement in the mansion was palpable. Everyone was eager to contribute, and Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. She spent long hours organizing everything from planting flower beds to arranging seating. The garden slowly transformed into a beautiful haven filled with vibrant flowers, herbs, and vegetables that would soon be ready for harvest. On the morning of the event, Maria arrived early to ensure everything was set up perfectly. The sun rose, casting a golden hue over the garden, and she couldn't help but smile at the sight. She had poured her heart into this project, and seeing it come to life filled her with joy. John joined her soon after, looking equally enthusiastic. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, ready to work alongside Maria and the staff. "Everything looks incredible," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "You've done an amazing job bringing this vision to life." Maria felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "I couldn't have done it without your support," she replied. Your willingness to listen and collaborate made all the difference. As guests began to arrive, the garden came alive with laughter and chatter. Families, friends, and community members gathered, drawn together by the common purpose of celebrating nature and connection. Maria moved through the crowd, engaging with everyone, introducing them to the various plants and sharing her knowledge of gardening. John, meanwhile, circulated among the guests, making connections and welcoming everyone with warmth. He took a moment to step back and observe Maria in her element, effortlessly commanding the attention of those around her. He admired her ability to connect with people and recognized how far they had both come since their initial fallout. In this moment, he understood that this garden was more than just a project. It symbolized their growth, a testament to their newfound partnership. As the day progressed, they hosted various activities, including workshops on gardening techniques, a flower arrangement contest, and even a cooking demonstration featuring fresh ingredients from the garden. Laughter and joy filled the air, and the atmosphere was charged with a sense of community. In the midst of the celebration, John pulled Maria aside, a look of appreciation on his face. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for everything," he said earnestly. "You've not only transformed this mansion, but also my life. I've learned so much from you, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work alongside you." Maria felt a warm blush creep across her cheeks. "Thank you, John. That means a lot to me. I've learned a great deal from you too about leadership, communication, and the importance of building trust." As they stood together, a sense of understanding passed between them. This was more than just a job. It was a partnership based on mutual respect and genuine care. They had both grown through their experiences, and in this moment, they felt a deep bond that had blossomed from the ashes of their past. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden, John gathered everyone together to share a few words. He stood on a small makeshift stage, beaming with pride as he addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today. This garden represents not only the hard work of everyone involved, but also the beauty of community. Together, we've created a space where everyone is welcome to learn, share, and grow. I especially want to acknowledge Maria, whose vision and dedication brought this to life." The crowd erupted in applause, and Maria felt her heart swell with pride. She had poured herself into this project, and seeing the community come together in such a meaningful way was incredibly rewarding. After the speeches, they all enjoyed a delicious meal prepared by the local chef, featuring fresh produce from the garden. The conversations flowed and connections were made. Maria moved among the guests, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. This was what she had always wanted, a sense of belonging and community. As the evening wound down, John and Maria shared a quiet moment amidst the fading light, watching as families packed up and said their goodbyes. "Today was incredible," John remarked, a smile lingering on his face. "I couldn't have imagined it would be this successful." Maria nodded, her heart full. "It was a team effort, John. I'm glad we could bring everyone together." A moment of silence stretched between them, and then John turned to her, his expression turning serious. "I want you to know how much I value our partnership. You've taught me so much about leadership, compassion, and the importance of trust. I don't take that for granted anymore." Maria looked into his eyes, recognizing the sincerity of his words. "I appreciate that, John. I've learned that trust is built over time, and I'm grateful for the progress we've made together. It's been a journey, but I believe we're both better for it." As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, John took a step closer, his voice low and earnest. "I'd like to continue this journey, not just as employer and employee, but as friends. I want us to support each other in our personal growth and the work we do here. What do you think?" Maria felt a rush of warmth. She had longed for this connection, and the thought of building a friendship with John excited her. "I'd like that too, John. I think we can learn a lot from each other as friends, and it will only strengthen our work here." With that, they both knew they were stepping into a new phase of their relationship, one that transcended the boundaries of work and ventured into the realm of genuine friendship. They could sense that their shared experiences had created a bond that would only deepen over time. As they looked out over the garden, now illuminated by soft lanterns, Maria felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. The journey they had embarked on had been challenging, filled with moments of doubt and insecurity, but it had also been transformative. Together, they had not only rebuilt their relationship, but had also cultivated a sense of community and trust that would last for years to come. In the following months, the garden continued to thrive, becoming a beloved hub for the community. Maria and John collaborated on various projects, expanding their vision to include educational programs for local schools where children could learn about gardening, sustainability, and the importance of community service. Their friendship deepened as they navigated challenges together, always leaning on one another for support. They celebrated successes and learned from setbacks, forging a partnership that was built on a foundation of trust, respect, and understanding. John became more involved in Maria's life outside of work, attending events and gatherings in her community, and she found herself reciprocating by joining him for business events and networking opportunities. Through their friendship, they each discovered new passions. John became more engaged in philanthropy, inspired by Maria's dedication to helping others. He started organizing charity events and supporting local initiatives, using his resources to make a positive impact. Maria, in turn, began to explore leadership opportunities, inspired by John's growth and determination. She took courses on management and leadership, eager to develop her skills and make a difference in her community. Together, they became a force for good, not just within the walls of the mansion, but in the larger community as well. Their journey was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of nurturing relationships based on trust and understanding. As seasons changed and years passed, they found themselves reflecting on how far they had come, from the initial fallout to building a vibrant community and a strong friendship. And on one beautiful autumn day, as they stood in the garden, surrounded by vibrant colors and the laughter of children, they both felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them together. They had weathered the storms, learned from their mistakes, and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. In that moment, with the sun setting behind them, they knew they had created something special, not just a beautiful garden, but a lasting bond that would continue to flourish through the years. Together, they had transformed their lives and the lives of those around them, embodying the very essence of growth, healing, and the power of second chances.